Despite the fact the curtains are closed, it's a lovely hot summer's day here in England, which is why I'm wearing this vest. But I'm here to talk about something very special which has happened with eBay. Today is a day, the first time ever that I've hit 100 sales in the last 90 days. So over the last 90 days, I've sold 100 items. And more importantly, 70 items of those have been in the last 30 days, which shows that this business is clearly moving quickly. But I want to talk to you about what I've learned over selling the last 100 items, things I've experienced, and ultimately, again, whether it's been worth it and whether I would recommend it to you, and things that I've experienced so that you would not make the same mistakes. But let's first jump into what has happened. So yeah, in the last 90 days, I've sold around 100 items. It started off being 100 this morning, and already by midday today, it was 103. So clearly a few sales coming in today, which is fantastic. In the past week, I've sold 2 items roughly a day, some days being 3 items, but there's been a sale or 2 every single day this week. In the last week, there were some days where we didn't have any sales, but there were others where we had 5 sales, 10 sales in a single day. So it was a bit all over the place, but averages out to be about 65 to 70 sales in the past month, which is really good. But over the past 90 days, the first 2 months were quite slow, but things are obviously speeding up massively as we go on. But I want to talk to you about what has happened. I have to say overwhelmingly, it has been a good experience. Most of these sales have gone very well. I've enjoyed most of them. Now, what I've experienced are a few things which I didn't expect in this process. I knew it was going to have its flaws and a few issues with it, but there were some things which I just wasn't prepared for that I will hopefully be able to tell you guys about so that you will know what to experience. Whilst the majority of sales were brilliant, like I said, a few things which I incurred were scammers trying to take money from me or trying to take my products without paying or saying that they didn't arrive, which was quite frustrating to be honest, as a few people, and I've experienced this multiple times and I will now know for the future not to do this again, but in the first few weeks, a few people bought multiple items from me. Now for the context, I sell watches, actually quite a lot of watches are behind this camera right now, but yeah, I sell watches on eBay. And what happened is people bought some of my more expensive watches, so watches from the ranges of, let's say, 60 to 200 pounds. I had people buying, 2 or 3 watches at a time. And at that time I thought, well, that's fine, that's good, because I just imagined somebody's buying one for their wife or 2 for themselves, especially if they're different varieties. But what actually happened in a few instances is people bought these high ticket items and then tried to say that they never arrived. Fortunately though, I have sold on eBay before many years ago and I'm aware of this scam and it's something which people try and do. So fortunately, I track everything carefully. I make sure every parcel is signed for and I have the phone number, the tracking information and everything necessary to make sure this item does not get lost. So most people didn't really get away with that scam, but it's something which as a new seller you should be aware of, and especially if you're going to be selling items and sending them out in a cheap way, especially if they're expensive items, it just makes more sense most of the time to send out these expensive items with signed for post or some sort of decent tracking so that people can't scam you, because unfortunately, whilst the majority of customers are good, there will be those one or two customers that do try and take money from you unfairly, so be aware of that. Another thing which kind of disappointed me, and I can't really say it's a problem, but something which I didn't expect, is how quick customers are to leave bad feedback and how reluctant they are to leave good feedback. For the context, I've sold on my store now 130-ish items total. It might be a bit more or a bit less, but around 130 items. Now for the feedback, I have 38 positive feedback and 1 negative feedback. So overall, I've had 40 feedback for 130 orders. I'd have expected more than that, so it's quite disappointing that when people have a good experience, they are not that happy to share it. On the other hand though, even though I said I have 1 negative feedback, I also have 1 neutral feedback, and a few customers straight away left me with some bad feedback for no reason. Fortunately though, on eBay there is an option to amend feedback, and when a customer complains, I said, well, it's a bit unfair for you to leave negative feedback straight away. Can we sort this issue out? And 9 times out of 10, it's yes, we can do something, whether it's take a bit of money off the price, whether it's return the item or something like that. I will do what I can so that customers can have a more pleasant experience. But now and again, you get that one customer who just will not do anything to try and solve the issue. And it is a shame, but it does happen. So that's one thing that I've seen a lot. Customers who want to complain for no reason and want to return items unfairly. And whilst we're on that topic, let's talk about returns. Now for me, I started accepting returns about 2 months ago, so about, a quarter of the way through this journey, I decided to accept returns. And I thought overall as a policy, it's something worth doing. Now, After selling 100 items, I have to say it has been worth it. My returns rate has been about 6 or 7%, so obviously out of the 100 sales, maybe 6 or 7 came back, but ultimately it has been worth it, and I'll tell you why. I sell watches, like I said, but what it is if people wanted to complain about a watch, whether it be a smartwatch or a normal watch, they will say the mechanism or the movement doesn't work or something like that. They will find a reason to return it. And eBay has a policy where if an item doesn't work properly, even if you do not accept returns on your store, they will return or refund the item because it will be sold as something which is deceptive. So 9 times out of 10, customers are fine with the returns policy. It's better to have one, in my opinion, than to not, because most customers will return it either way, even if you don't have returns on, if they wanted to. And ultimately, by having it on, it gives those buyers that extra peace of mind that, hey, if anything does go wrong with this, I will be refunded. Like I said, it hasn't affected me at all. People were refunding things if they wanted to when I didn't have returns on anyway. So by having returns on, I don't really lose anything. And I still don't accept returns for items which a customer has bought and then decided that they don't want. It's a case of, if you want this item, that's up to you. If it has a fault, I will take it back. But if you say you don't want it anymore, that's not really my problem. So I don't really like to accept returns or refunds for that reason. Let's also speak, whilst we're on the topic, about returns versus refunds. I make sure to never accept refunds and always accept returns. And there's a good reason for this, and this is something that I've learnt over the past few weeks and months. By accepting refunds, you give a customer back their money and return nothing. So ultimately, if I sold a watch, let's say, and the customer doesn't like it anymore and wants a refund, I have to give them their money back, but I don't receive my product back. By having free returns, I do have to pay a little bit for postage, usually between £3 and £5, but it is worth it because then I get the item back, especially if it is still in working condition. I can then sell it again for the same price, or if it is faulty, I can sell the item as faulty and hopefully recoup some of the losses on that product to make a bit of a smaller loss. And in some instances, I can even return that faulty product back to the original seller who I bought the product from in the first place, which again minimizes the losses on my part. So ultimately, all of these things help, but I would never, in my opinion, I would never accept refunds. I would always accept returns. If somebody doesn't want the item anymore, fine, send it back. But I don't really see a reason as to why I should give somebody a free item, working or not, and not accept anything back. So there are a few things that I've learned on eBay. Overall, a positive experience. I just wanted to talk about a few of the things to be aware of. I'm not saying that it means it's a bad platform. Again, I've had a lot of fun doing this and I've made quite a decent amount of money. I'll talk more about that in a different episode, but I wanted to just quickly cover what I've experienced in my 3 months and my 100 products worth of sales. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe and like, and I'll see you in our next one.